It has been 30 years since Nancy Grunwald vanished while cycling along Tasmania's east coast, leaving authorities and her loved ones with numerous unanswered questions. The police strongly suspect foul play, but have neither located Nancy nor identified any suspects. Nancy was a German tourist who arrived in Australia in March 1993, after visiting New Zealand. She planned to explore Australia for 2 to 3 months. On March 6, she travelled to Tasmania, where she intended to visit some pen pals, including Reverend Ivor Jones. She rented a Red Road Chief Marauder mountain bike and left a bulky backpack at the rental store, planning to pick it up at the end of her journey. However, she never retrieved the backpack, and a travel ticket she had booked for April 4th was never used. Reverend Jones was the first to report Nancy missing, but not until May 14th, approximately 6 weeks after she was last seen. This delay hindered the police's ability to trace her steps, although they were able to piece together a timeline of her movements after her arrival in Tasmania. There were no indications that she intended to disappear. Everything seemed normal. Nancy took a coach to St. Helens on March 11th and stayed overnight at St. Helens Hostel. She departed the hostel the next morning, heading south on her bike. The last confirmed sighting of her was around 11 a.m. that day. She was seen by fellow travelers Christine and Tanya, who later realized they had passed her along the Tasman Highway. Investigators do not believe Nancy chose to vanish. She had left most of her belongings behind, including untouched bank accounts, suggesting she was not planning to start anew elsewhere. The police consider 2 main theories: a hit-and-run accident, supported by anonymous calls in 1997 claiming involvement in such an accident around the time Nancy disappeared, and a potential encounter with someone with harmful intentions, highlighted by a subsequent attack on another young woman at a beach Nancy had visited. In 2021, Tasmania police offered a $500,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in Nancy's case, urging anyone with even the slightest information to come forward. Nancy's family remains hopeful for answers, determined to uncover the truth about what happened and bring her home. Fiona Sennett was just 19 years old when she vanished without a trace over 26 years ago. She was spending the evening at Butler's, a local pub, chatting and joking with friends about a night out they had enjoyed the previous Friday. Fiona's ex-partner, Sean Carroll, was also present, sitting alone at the bar, smoking and enjoying a pint. However, during the evening, Fiona reached out to her brother, inviting him to join her and her friends at Butler's. He declined, having just returned from work. As the night drew to a close, Fiona bid farewell to her friends and embarked on the short walk back to her rental home in Ballahit. At 12:10 a.m., she left the bar holding 2 packets of peanuts. Carol, father to their 11-month-old daughter, decided to walk her home. This was the last time Fiona was seen in public, and her friends would never see her again. It wasn't until February 18, 1998, that Fiona was reported missing. Known for her independence, Fiona had previously taken spontaneous trips, like her visit to Cork. Considering she lived 16 kilometers from her family home and the rarity of mobile phones at the time, it was common for days to pass without communication. Fiona typically visited Wexford town every Friday to meet her family for coffee. When she missed this routine for the 2nd consecutive week, her family grew concerned. As more days passed without word, the severity of the situation became apparent. However, on February 18th, Fiona's father contacted Kilmore Garda Station, triggering a full-scale missing persons investigation. Given that Fiona and Sean Carroll had left Butler's together, he was naturally among the first contacted by the Gardaí. Carroll recounted to the investigators that he had walked Fiona back to her house in Ballahit and spent the night on her couch. He noted that Fiona had complained of arm and upper body pains and had gone straight to bed. The following morning, Carol saw that Fiona was awake but still in pain. She expressed intentions to hitch a lift to her GP due to lack of funds, prompting Carol to give her £3 before he left with his mother. This was the last known interaction with Fiona. Further investigation revealed that Fiona had not visited her GP in Broadway, nor was there any evidence of her attempting to hitch a ride. A theory involving a Welsh trucker was explored but dismissed. Fiona had spent a night with a trucker 2 nights before her disappearance, raising suspicions. However, when the Gardaí contacted him, he provided a solid alibi, proving he was on the continent when Fiona disappeared. During a technical examination of Fiona's house, it was noted that many personal belongings were missing, and the house was unusually clean. Retired Detective Sergeant Alan Bailey pointed out the complete absence of items that would suggest a teenage girl and her daughter lived there. Local rumors and a farmer's discovery of black bags with items linked to Fiona added layers to the mystery. These were burned by the farmers under the assumption of illegal dumping. The misalignment of the address on the found items with the one listed in missing persons appeals suggested an attempt to mislead the investigation. As Fiona's daughter approached her first birthday and her sister's 21st birthday loomed, it seemed unlikely Fiona had left voluntarily. Detectives remain convinced that Fiona's body is buried somewhere in South County, Wexford. Despite extensive searches, including draining the nearby lake on Ladies Island, no trace of Fiona has been found. In 2001, the death of a man suspected of involvement in Fiona's disappearance hinted at unresolved guilt among those who knew her whereabouts. However, a breakthrough came on September 16, 2005, when Gardaí arrested the prime suspect and several others on suspicions of withholding information. Despite intense investigations, no charges were filed. Foul play is suspected in Fiona's case, and police continue to urge anyone with information to come forward to provide the closure Fiona's family desperately needs. Information can be passed to Wexford Garda Station at 053 916 5200 or the Garda Confidential line at 1800 666 111. In the late 1980s, many young people in Morgantown, West Virginia, saw Marcia Furber as more than just a local business owner. To them, she was a nurturing, motherly figure. Marcia provided a welcoming space where music, ideas, and creativity could flourish. However, in April of 1988, she mysteriously vanished, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a community in shock. Marcia Furber led an alternative lifestyle, deeply rooted in communal living and progressive values. Before settling in West Virginia, she had established communal living spaces in New Jersey. In Morgantown, she was affectionately known as the Jewish Earth Mother. In 1982, she opened the Underground Railroad, a bar and music venue located at 123 Pleasant Street. Although Marcia wasn't particularly fond of alcohol, she had a deep love for music. The Underground Railroad became a hub for various bands, including the then up-and-coming Red Hot Chili Peppers. Next door, Marcia ran the Dry House, a similar space open to all ages, where young people could gather and find a sense of belonging. Marcia's influence extended far beyond her business ventures. She was known for helping those whom society often overlooked: college dropouts, ex-convicts, and single mothers. Whenever a new band performed at her bar, Marcia made it a point to be there, always ready to welcome them personally. Her absence on April 27, 1988, raised immediate concerns. It had been several days since anyone had seen her, and the last confirmed sighting was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on April 23. Gary Perkins, a friend with a criminal record, claimed to be the last person to see Marcia before she disappeared. Although the police found no concrete evidence that she had returned from Florida, Perkins insisted that Marcia had indeed come back to Morgantown. He stated that he had lunch with her and then dropped her off at the Underground Railroad. Some staff members also claimed to have seen Marcia that day before she went out to run errands. However, as days turned into weeks, there was still no sign of Marcia. Marcia had been separated from her husband for some time, and her 2 sons were adults by the time of her disappearance. She had a tenant living in the same building and a wide circle of friends and acquaintances. Despite this, no one could say for certain that she hadn't simply decided to leave without telling anyone. Due to Marcia's free-spirited lifestyle, her friends were initially hesitant to involve the police. However, by May 1st, they realized something was seriously wrong and reported her missing. Even after the report was filed, it took some time for the police to begin their investigation. Marcia had connections in several states, including New York, New Jersey, and Florida, leading to speculation that she might have taken a spontaneous trip. However, the police found no activity on her credit cards after she left Florida, raising the possibility that she had never returned to West Virginia at all. Over the years, the police have followed various leads, including the theory that Marcia's disappearance may have been linked to organized crime and illegal substances. While few details have been made public, the authorities have kept certain information private, intending to use it to verify any leads or confessions that may arise in the future. Another theory suggests that Marcia might have entered witness protection for reasons unknown. However, Marcia's friends find it hard to believe that she would have left willingly, even if she were in danger. It seems more likely that Marcia is no longer alive. If Marcia Furber were alive today, she would be 87 years old. She stood between 5 feet 4 inches and 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighed between 140 and 165 pounds. Anyone with information regarding her disappearance is urged to contact the Morgantown Police Department at 304-284-7454. Her community continues to seek closure, hoping that one day, the mystery of Marcia Furber's disappearance will finally be solved. Forrest Sharp, an emerging rap artist who performed under the stage name DY, seemed poised for a bright future in the music industry. However, a trip to Mexico after completing work on his second single led to his mysterious disappearance. Nearly 14 years later, his case remains unsolved. Forrest was born in Vancouver, Canada, in 1984. He was the 4th of 5 children. From a young age, he displayed a passion for music, winning MC competitions as early as 14. His talent and dedication to his craft eventually led him to sign with the Toronto-based record label, CP Records, in 2009. That October, he released his debut single, which garnered significant attention and acclaim. By 2010, DY was recognized as one of Canada's most promising new artists by Billboard. As Forrest prepared to release his second single, he spent the summer of 2010 recording a music video with singer D. Woods. Filming for the video wrapped up in early August, and Forrest informed his family that he planned to take a trip to Mexico. He didn't share many details about the reason for his visit, but he mentioned that he would be out of contact for about 2 weeks. His family didn't find this unusual. After all, he had just completed a significant project and might have wanted some time to relax and unwind. However, as the weeks passed with no word from Forrest, his family began to grow concerned. Initially, they thought he might have extended his stay in Mexico, but as time went on, their worry deepened. Eventually, Forrest's family contacted the police to report him missing, hoping that he would turn up safe and sound, unaware of the panic he had caused. They were hesitant to make a public appeal, fearing it might embarrass Forrest and negatively impact his burgeoning music career. Consequently, the police investigation began quietly, without public attention. It wasn't until 3 months after Forrest's disappearance that his fans and the public became aware that something was wrong. Questions started to arise about his whereabouts, and the news of his disappearance finally broke. The last known communication with Forrest occurred on September 8th, when a post wishing someone a happy birthday appeared on his Twitter account. However, Forrest's family believed this post was made by his management, who were unaware that he was missing. The last time anyone communicated with Forrest directly was on August 13th, when he sent a message to his manager saying he was in Mexico. The following day, his manager attempted to contact him via BlackBerry Messenger, but the message was never delivered. Initially, there was some uncertainty about whether Forrest had even left the country, but the police were eventually able to confirm that he had indeed arrived in Mexico. What happened to him after that remains a complete mystery. Early in the investigation, there was speculation that Forrest's disappearance might have been a publicity stunt for his music career. However, those who knew him well, especially his close-knit family, found it hard to believe that he would put them through such an ordeal. As time passed, the hope of a sudden reappearance faded, and it became increasingly clear that something more sinister may have occurred. However, Forrest's case quickly went cold, and it remains unsolved to this day. There have been rumors that he may have met with foul play, but no concrete evidence or leads have emerged, at least, none that have been made public. The mystery of what happened to Forrest Sharp continues to haunt those who knew and loved him. Anyone with information regarding Forrest Sharp's disappearance is urged to contact the Toronto Police Department at 416-808-2222. The hope is that one day, the truth will come to light, and his family will finally get the answers they deserve. Kelly Howard disappeared under mysterious circumstances on June 2, 2009. Although she was legally declared deceased in 2014, her family continues to seek answers about what truly happened to her, and where she might be today. Kelly was a well-known and well-liked member of the Riverside, Alabama, community. She lived in nearby Pell City and worked as a dental hygienist at Riverside Family Dentistry for 6 years. She had no known enemies and lived what appeared to be an ordinary life. The day she vanished started like any other. Sometime between 12 and 1 p.m., during the lunch break when the dental office was closed, Kelly was in the office, speaking with her mother on the phone. Everything seemed normal until Kelly mentioned that someone was at the office door. She asked her mother to stay on the line while she went to see who it was. However, Kelly never returned to the phone. The last known sighting of Kelly was when she left the dental office shortly after that phone call. While the exact details of who saw her are unclear, what is certain is that Kelly never came back. It wasn't long before she was reported missing, and an investigation was launched. Kelly's car was still in the parking lot outside the dental office, but all of her other belongings, including her purse, phone, and wallet, were gone. Her keys were later found in a plastic bag, hidden in a patch of weeds near the office. Her phone remained active between 12:50 and 1:10 p.m., around the time of her disappearance, but then it went silent. There was no apparent reason why Kelly would have wanted to disappear. However, early in the investigation, the police uncovered some puzzling information. The day before she vanished, Kelly had asked her boss for 3 days off, saying she wanted to take a short vacation. Neither her husband of 8 years nor her adult son knew anything about these plans or why she might have wanted time off. Despite extensive searches in the local area and numerous tips to the police, Kelly's case quickly went cold. 2 years after Kelly disappeared, her boss, Dr. Rick Mitchell, made headlines when he was convicted of fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. The police stated there was no known connection between his criminal activities and Kelly's disappearance, although they couldn't entirely rule out foul play. Kelly's family, however, believes that Mitchell may have had something to do with her disappearance. Later, Mitchell and his wife were charged with insurance fraud after the building where Kelly was last seen was set on fire. By that time, the dental office had been converted into a church and learning center. Despite going through the legal process of having Kelly declared deceased, her family has never stopped searching for the truth about what happened to her. They continue to hold out hope that one day, they will find the answers they need. Kelly is described as being 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighing 145 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Anyone with information about her case is urged to contact the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office at 205-884-3333. The hope remains that one day, the mystery of Kelly Howard's disappearance will finally be resolved. Craig Arnold was 41 years old when he mysteriously disappeared while hiking on the Japanese island of Kuchino-Abu-jima. He had been documenting his journey on a blog titled Volcano Pilgrim, but the blog went silent on April 26, 2009, marking the last time anyone heard from him. Craig was not only an accomplished poet, but also a passionate adventurer. His first poetry collection, Shells, was selected for the prestigious Yale series of younger poets. He went on to win numerous other awards before publishing his second book, Made Flesh, in 2008. In addition to his literary achievements, Craig was an assistant professor at the University of Wyoming, where he mentored aspiring writers and helped them pursue their creative goals. Driven by his fascination with volcanoes, Craig began planning a new poetry collection centered around these natural wonders. To support his research, he was awarded a spot in the U.S.-Japan Creative Artists Program, which provided funding for his ambitious project. According to his blog, Craig planned to spend 5 months in Japan, delving into the world of volcanoes to gather inspiration for his next work. Craig arrived in Tokyo in mid-March 2009 and began his journey by visiting Mount Asama, one of the most active volcanoes on the island of Honshu. Over the next month, he traveled extensively across Japan, visiting various volcanoes and sharing his poetic reflections on his blog. On April 27, he reached what would become his final destination, Kuchino-Abu-jima. Kuchino-Abu-jima is a remote island, covering roughly 15 square miles, with an elevation of just over 2,100 feet. Despite its sparse population, it attracts tourists with its hot springs and rugged beauty. The island is also home to Mount Shindake, an active volcano that rises above the landscape. Though the volcano's crater is off-limits to visitors, Craig was drawn to its allure. After checking into a guest house on the island, Craig paused for a cup of tea before setting off to explore Mount Shindake. He traveled alone, leaving most of his belongings behind, as he only intended to be gone for a few hours. He carried no food or water, suggesting he planned a short excursion. Concern arose when Craig failed to return to the guest house. A search was immediately launched, with teams tracing his footprints up the path toward the volcano's summit. However, there were no footprints indicating his descent. The search led investigators to a steep incline, raising the possibility that Craig may have fallen from the edge. Despite the perilous drop, it wasn't certain that such a fall would have been fatal. Holding on to hope, Craig's family joined the search efforts. His brother traveled to Japan, assisting in the search, which included the use of infrared technology from the air and thorough ground searches through the thick vegetation covering the mountain. Despite these efforts, no sign of Craig was found. At one point, rumors surfaced that Craig had accessed his Facebook page using a cell phone, giving his loved ones a brief glimmer of hope. However, authorities later confirmed that the phone he had with him would not have been able to connect to any service on the island. After about 10 days, the official search for Craig was called off. If he had fallen, survival without food or water seemed highly unlikely. In the years since Craig's disappearance, neither his remains nor any of his belongings have ever been found, leaving his family and friends with a lingering mystery and the ache of unanswered questions. Amos Mortier was a student who mysteriously disappeared from his home in Wisconsin in 2004. It wasn't until after his disappearance that his mother discovered he had been leading a double life. This has complicated the still unsolved case. To his family, Amos was an outdoor enthusiast with a deep love of music. He was studying ecology and botany at Madison Area Technical College, MATC, and had plans to transfer to a university soon. Amos was passionate about sustainable living and farming, even going so far as to churn his butter rather than buy it. He enjoyed hiking and had recently returned from a trip when he went missing. His closest companion was his dog, Noir, who was often by his side on his many hiking and camping trips. The bond between Amos and Noir was so strong that even the local bank allowed Noir to accompany Amos inside. On November 6, 2004, Amos went hiking with two friends, with Noir by his side. Everything seemed normal, and they all returned to Amos's home without any issues. However, in the days that followed, Amos's friends tried to reach him multiple times but received no response. His mother also hadn't heard from him, and he missed his classes and an important exam. Concerned, his friends decided to check on him on November 13th. When they arrived at his home, they found the front door locked but managed to enter through a side door. Inside, they encountered a puzzling scene. A record was still spinning on the turntable, and it appeared that Amos had been in the middle of hanging pictures when he abruptly left. All of his belongings were still there, but Amos and Noir were gone. The next day, the police were finally called in, but by then, some of Amos's friends had already removed a safe and a few other items from his home. The safe, however, turned out to be empty. Shortly after Amos was reported missing, Noir was found wandering the streets by a neighbor and was taken in. The dog seemed unharmed, but the fact that Noir was alone raised alarms among those who knew Amos. Initially, Amos's mother speculated that he might have gotten into an accident while walking Noir. The dog had a habit of bolting if not on a leash, and Amos might have run into the path of a car while trying to catch him. However, the police soon uncovered a darker possibility. They discovered that many of Amos's associates had ties to illegal activities, leading them to believe that his disappearance might be related to these connections. There was some evidence suggesting that someone owed Amos money, and it was theorized that he might have been lured to a remote location and harmed. Years later, someone confessed to doing just that, but the police were uncertain whether the confession was credible. Meanwhile, Amos's mother held on to a more hopeful theory. In June 2005, 3 nurses reported seeing a man at a music festival who matched Amos's description. The man appeared confused and complained of memory problems. The festival featured bands that Amos was known to enjoy, which could have drawn him there. His friends began attending other music festivals in hopes of finding more clues, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Since Amos's disappearance, there have been no confirmed sightings and no definitive explanation for what happened to him. The investigation into his case remains open. Amos is described as being 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighing 130 pounds at the time he vanished. He had a scar on his forehead and wore brown-framed glasses. Anyone with information about his case is urged to contact the Fitchburg Police Department at 608-270-4300. The search for answers continues, with his family and friends still hoping for closure. Pierre Bioncon is not a name familiar to most people outside of France, but in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the football star was a controversial figure, both on and off the pitch. In December 1993, he mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind his car, a young family, and a swirl of rumors. Bioncon was born on the island of Corsica in 1962. Like many young boys, he began playing football at a young age. Childhood friends remembered him as a passionate player, continuing to play even after injuring his knee on the hard concrete streets. He played for a local youth team and, in 1979, moved to mainland France to join the youth team of Vichy. However, Bioncon was deeply connected to his Corsican roots and never felt truly at home away from the island. It was no surprise that when he began his senior football career, he returned to Corsica to play for SC Bastia. As a defender, Bioncon was exceptionally talented. Many friends and fellow players believed he had the skill to play for bigger clubs, and possibly even the national team if only he could control his aggressive tendencies. During his career, he did play for several mainland teams, including Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, but he always found his way back to Corsica. According to one friend, Bioncon would sometimes intentionally earn yellow or red cards just to return home for a few days. His aggression on the field was notorious. Once, he even headbutted a referee after receiving a red card. Despite his fiery nature, Bioncon was fiercely loyal to his club and its supporters. After one match where Bastia had won, fans invaded the pitch. Bioncon saw a fan being assaulted by a security guard and immediately intervened to protect the fan. He was also one of the first to help when a stadium stand collapsed before a game in 1992, rushing to assist injured fans. Bionconi's life off the pitch was as complex as his football career. He had connections to Corsican independence and nationalist movements, a particularly turbulent time in Corsican politics. The nationalist movement was divided into two factions, each with differing views on how to achieve their goals. This division led to violence, banditry, and even loss of life. While Bioncon openly expressed his nationalist sympathies, the extent of his involvement in these activities remains unclear. He once ran as a candidate in Bastia's municipal elections and had friends who were involved in the self-determination movement, but it is uncertain how deeply he was involved. In the summer of 1993, Bioncon ended his professional football career after 11 years. He had made 177 career appearances and played for 5 different teams. It seemed like he was ready to settle down with his wife and their 2 children. However, on December 29, 1993, Bioncon left his home, looking pensive according to his sister, though she didn't find it unusual. Despite his reputation as a tough player, he could be quite reserved in private. He told his sister he would see her later, but that was the last time anyone saw him. A few days later, Bionconi's car was found at the port of Bastia. There were no signs of a struggle or foul play, and no clues as to what had happened to him. Many speculated that his disappearance was linked to the tense political climate at the time, but no one ever came forward with any information. The case quickly went cold, leaving his family and friends with more questions than answers, and his fate remains one of Corsica's enduring mysteries. On July 16, 1996, Susan Walsh dropped off her son with her estranged husband, planning to be gone for just 30 minutes. However, she never returned, and her disappearance soon became one of the most puzzling mysteries. Despite widespread media attention, the case of Susan Walsh remains unsolved to this day. Susan had always dreamed of being a writer. To pursue her passion, she studied English and writing at William Paterson University. To support herself through college, Susan began working as an exotic dancer. While she initially enjoyed the work, she later expressed how much she grew to dislike it, especially dealing with the customers. After graduating in 1984, she moved into freelance journalism. Around this time, she also married Mark Walsh, and in 1988, the couple welcomed a son. Sadly, their marriage deteriorated, and by 1996, they were living apart. As a journalist, Susan's most notable work was for The Village Voice, a popular alternative newspaper. Her first significant story focused on the Russian mafia's influence over the strip clubs where she had once worked. This piece stirred up controversy, leading club owners to align with their dancers against the mafia, placing Susan in a potentially dangerous situation. However, Susan seemed undeterred by the threats and continued her investigative reporting. Her next major project involved a strange and growing underground culture, a vampire movement in New York City nightclubs. While many participants were merely dressed in gothic fashion, some claimed to actually consume the life force of others or even drink blood like vampires. A few even admitted to taking lives to feed their cravings. Susan became intrigued by the subculture, and she even dated several individuals who identified as vampires. Though Susan was passionate about the topic, the Village Voice ultimately decided not to publish her story on the vampire movement, as the editor felt it was too biased. During this time, Susan began confiding in friends about a stalker she believed was following her. One ex-boyfriend recalled Susan telling him that her stalker was another ex-boyfriend who had previously worked for the mob. Initially, some friends thought she might be overreacting, but soon they too noticed suspicious behavior that supported her fears. Despite the danger, Susan continued to push forward with her work. Financially, Susan was struggling as a writer, so she reluctantly returned to exotic dancing to make ends meet. Although it was no longer a job she enjoyed, it provided her with the income she needed. It also allowed her to assist friends with research for books and documentaries related to the industry. At this point, Susan's life was incredibly hectic. She was fearful for her safety, likely because of her investigative work involving the mafia, and she was also battling personal demons. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was dealing with severe mood swings and depression in the months leading up to her disappearance. When Susan vanished, her case gained immediate attention due to her past journalism work. She left behind all her personal belongings at her apartment, including her wallet and pager. One strange detail that investigators noted was that the entire month of July had been torn out of Susan's calendar, a clue that only deepened the mystery. Police first questioned her estranged husband, but he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. In fact, authorities never officially named a person of interest in Susan's disappearance. Some believe she may have chosen to disappear intentionally, but her family strongly disagrees. They can't imagine Susan abandoning her son voluntarily. Over the years, police have reopened the case multiple times, but no new evidence has ever surfaced. At the time of her disappearance, Susan was 36 years old. She stood 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed approximately 110 pounds. Despite decades of investigation, Susan Walsh remains missing, and her case continues to baffle both law enforcement and the public. Anyone with information about Susan Walsh's disappearance is urged to contact the Nutley Police Department at 973-284-4940. Linda Rose Grimm was only 25 years old when she disappeared without a trace. Over the following 18 months, her mother received occasional phone calls that she believed were from Linda, but something always seemed off about them. When the calls eventually stopped, it became clear that something was seriously wrong. Despite how strange and unsettling this case is, there isn't much known about Linda's life. She was married, and some reports mention that she had a cesarean scar, but there is little information about whether she had children or other family members. Some sources suggest she was in a strained relationship with her husband, but the reasons behind this are unclear. The last known sighting of Linda was on or around March 31, 1986, though even this detail is murky. Different accounts vary on who last saw her and when. The most commonly accepted version is that Linda was last seen by her mother on March 31. She left her home in Perry's, California, to buy a pack of cigarettes and never returned. She was reported missing shortly after. Some sources, however, claim she went missing on April 1, or even as early as April 1, 1985. There are also conflicting reports that her husband might have been the last person to see her. During the next 18 months, Linda's mother received phone calls that she believed were from her daughter. In these calls, Linda sounded nervous and gave little information. She seemed to be trying to reassure her mother that she was okay, but she wouldn't say where she was or why she had left. The calls were unpredictable, with no way of knowing when the next one would come or if it would be the last. Linda's final contact with her mother was in October 1987. She claimed to be in Wichita, Kansas, staying on a farm with a truck driver named Robert Masters. Despite these calls, Linda remained classified as a missing person. However, nearly 2 years after her last contact, Linda's car was found abandoned in the parking lot of a supermarket in Huntington Beach, California, about an hour and a half's drive from her home. It's unclear how long the car had been there, but it's unlikely it had been parked there the entire time Linda was missing. Unfortunately, the car didn't provide any new clues about what happened to her. Since Linda's disappearance, no new information has surfaced. It's unknown if anyone is still actively searching for her. If she were alive today, Linda would be 62 years old. She was described as being 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighing about 100 pounds, with brown hair and eyes, and she had a distinctive white mole on her nose near her left eye. She drove a yellow Ford Pinto. Anyone with information about Linda Rose Grimm's case is urged to contact the Orange County Sheriff's Department at 714-647-7000. Melvin Gamblin, a passionate sports enthusiast, traveled the world to attend major events like the Olympics and the Rugby World Cup. However, after one of these trips, Melvin mysteriously vanished and hasn't been seen or heard from since. At the time of his disappearance, Melvin was 37 years old and had traveled alone from his home in northern England to Athens to watch the 2004 Olympics. The Games were a major passion of his. He had attended the last 4 Olympics, which had taken him to far-off places like Australia and North America. Compared to those trips, a visit to Greece seemed relatively straightforward for someone as experienced as Melvin. Melvin had tickets to several events, including swimming, athletics, and rowing, but he tried to pack as many different sports into his trip as possible. He spent most of August in Greece, and his trip occasionally overlapped with those of friends from his hometown of Darlington. One friend recalled how Melvin sometimes slept less than an hour each night, eager to catch both early morning and late night events. Throughout his time in Athens, Melvin regularly sent emails and text messages to his family in England, sharing his experiences. Everything seemed to be going well, and his family had no reason to worry. The last time they heard from him was on August 28, the day before the Olympics closing ceremony. He was in high spirits, having just watched the 4x100-meter relay in which Great Britain won the gold. Melvin had planned to stay in Greece for a few extra days after the Games, with his return flight booked for September 3rd. It wasn't until he missed this flight that his family realized something was wrong. When they couldn't reach him, the search for Melvin began. Police investigations revealed that the last confirmed sighting of Melvin was at the hotel where he had been staying. On September 3rd, the day he was supposed to check out and fly home, he was seen leaving the hotel without properly checking out, leaving most of his luggage behind. Since then, there have been a few unconfirmed sightings of Melvin on various Greek islands, but none of these leads have led to his whereabouts. Melvin's family believes that his medical condition may have played a role in his disappearance. He suffered from ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. While this condition didn't usually disrupt his life significantly, he could experience severe episodes. When at home, Melvin would often sleep at least 10 hours a day. His family feared that the lack of sleep during his time in Athens might have exacerbated his condition, possibly leading to depression. Although Melvin had experienced episodes before, he had always stayed in touch with his family. The fact that he hadn't reached out to them was deeply concerning, and they didn't believe this was a typical relapse. A strange and puzzling clue emerged a few weeks after Melvin disappeared. A photograph of him taken in Athens was mailed to his home in England. There was no note or explanation included with the photo, and it was clear that Melvin hadn't taken it himself. It's possible that someone else had the photo developed and sent it to Melvin's home, perhaps unaware that he was missing. Unfortunately, like the potential sightings, this photograph didn't bring the police any closer to finding Melvin. Years after Melvin's unexplained disappearance, his family continues to hold on to hope that he might still be alive somewhere in Greece. They are still searching for answers to this strange and unsettling case. At the time he went missing, Melvin was described as being 5 feet 10 inches tall, of medium build, with short brown hair. He also wore glasses. Anyone with information about Melvin Gamblin's case is urged to contact Durham Constabulary at 101 or the Missing People Charity at 116,000. The disappearance of Andrea Warton is a case entangled with one of Australia's most infamous criminal investigations, yet it often goes overlooked due to its connection to other, more widely known cases. Andrea was just 23 years old when she vanished in 1984. She was the youngest of 3 children and lived in Gold Coast, Queensland. The last 7 years of her life had been difficult, and she had become involved with people who were dangerous to be around. Among them was her boyfriend, Yolik, whom she had met 3 years earlier. Despite Yolik being extradited to New South Wales in September to serve time for drug-related crimes, their relationship continued. The last time Andrea's family saw her was on February 19, 1984, following an argument with her parents. The details of the argument remain unknown, but Andrea left, telling them she was going to visit friends in Byron Bay, New South Wales. A few days later, she called her parents, still upset, and on February 29, they received a letter supposedly from Andrea, postmarked in Darlinghurst, a suburb of Sydney, 8 hours south of Byron Bay. In the letter, Andrea apologized for the distress she had caused, but said she wasn't ready to return home. She mentioned that she was going away for a short time. Now, nearly 40 years later, Andrea has never come back. Given Andrea's lifestyle at the time, her absence may not have immediately raised alarms, as it seemed possible she had left voluntarily. However, as time passed and her family couldn't reach her, it became clear something was wrong. Andrea was reported missing, but there were few clues for the police to follow. It was later discovered that Andrea had flown directly to Sydney, where her boyfriend Yolik was living, suggesting she had never intended to go to Byron Bay. Darlinghurst, from where the letter was sent, was known to be a dangerous area at the time. Some reports indicated that Andrea may have been in contact with criminals in the area, but concrete information was hard to come by. 19 months after Andrea's disappearance, Yolik also vanished. Police believed the 2 cases were connected, but they did not suspect Yolik of being responsible for Andrea's disappearance. Yolik was last seen on September 2, 1985, leaving his parents' home to meet a man named John Anderson. Anderson had a long criminal record, including drug offenses and violent crimes. He was also a suspect in several cases involving women and may have been linked to the disappearance of Trudy Adams. If Andrea were alive today, she would be 63 years old. She is described as being 5 feet 3 inches tall, with a slim build, fair hair, and hazel eyes. She has a scar from an appendix operation and another scar over her right eyebrow. Anyone with information about Andrea Warton's case is urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-000. In October 2020, Jordan Cheyenne Neibling, a 19-year-old woman living in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, vanished under mysterious circumstances. Jordan had recently secured a new job and was determined to leave behind a troubled past. Her childhood was marked by instability. She and her sister were placed in foster care at a young age before being adopted by a woman named Mary Tucker. During her teenage years, Jordan struggled with substance abuse, but by the time she got her new job, she was reportedly clean and hopeful about her future. Tragically, she disappeared before she could fully embrace this new chapter in her life, and her case remains unsolved. The events leading up to Jordan's disappearance began when she and a male friend decided to travel to Simpsonville, South Carolina, to visit some other friends. Lacking transportation, they borrowed a car from a mutual friend. However, once they arrived, Jordan's friend decided to leave with someone else, and on October 20th, Jordan set out to drive home alone. She made it as far as Old White Horse Road in Travelers Rest when the car began to sputter and eventually broke down. The residents of a nearby house later told investigators they saw Jordan get into another car, driven by a man they didn't recognize. That was the last time anyone saw or heard from her. When Jordan still hadn't returned home by November 8th, her adoptive mother, Mary Tucker, reported her missing to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, prompting an investigation. It soon emerged that the man who had picked Jordan up was her boyfriend, Tyler Wilkins, whom she had been dating for 2 years. When questioned, Tyler claimed that after picking Jordan up, they went to his place, where they had an argument. According to Tyler, Jordan then left on foot, saying she was going out, but didn't mention where she was headed. No further clues or tips have surfaced in Jordan's case, and her whereabouts remain unknown. Many people suspect Tyler Wilkins may be involved in Jordan's disappearance, especially given his later criminal behavior. In 2022, Wilkins was arrested and charged with the murder of his new girlfriend, Clarissa Michelle Winchester. It was discovered that Wilkins had held Clarissa captive in a family member's home, and she died as a result of the assault. While Wilkins awaits trial for these charges, no additional charges have been brought against him in connection with Jordan's disappearance. However, investigators believe that something tragic happened to Jordan and do not think she simply disappeared on her own. The search for answers continues, and authorities welcome any new information. Jordan is described as having blonde hair and blue or hazel eyes. She is about 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs between 90 and 100 pounds. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing black leggings and a gray sweatshirt. She also has a tattoo on one of her forearms that reads "Live Free" along with a few birds. Anyone with information about Jordan's whereabouts or what happened on the day she disappeared is urged to contact the Greenville County Sheriff's Office at 864-271-5210. Robert Gallagher, affectionately known as Robbie to his friends and family, had a deep love for the ocean. He was often found surfing or swimming along the shores of Oahu, Hawaii. Robbie frequently shared with those close to him that being out on the ocean was like therapy for him, providing solace and peace. So, it was no surprise that he began to struggle mentally during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, when restrictions kept him from his beloved ocean activities. On October 31, 2020, Robbie spoke with his mother on the phone, and she noticed that he was in a particularly troubled mental state. Concerned for his well-being, she, along with other family members, urged him to seek professional help, but Robbie did not heed their advice. In the days that followed, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He was eventually taken to Kahuku Medical Center for treatment, but before he could be seen by a doctor, he fled the facility. A nearby resident later reported that Robbie had attempted to force his way into her home for reasons that remain unclear. When authorities responded to the call, they found a pair of surfing fins on the property, which Robbie's family later confirmed belonged to him. However, they were puzzled about why he had them with him and where he could have gone afterward. When Robbie failed to reach out to any of his friends or family, they filed a missing person report with the Honolulu Police Department. In the days that followed, the family received a call from someone who had found Robbie's cell phone lying by the side of the road. Unfortunately, the phone provided no clues as to his whereabouts or what might have happened to him. A search of his apartment revealed that all of his belongings were still there, and his mother confirmed that she had his passport with her in California, ruling out the possibility that he had left the country. Despite searches of the surrounding area, no trace of Robbie was found, and his case eventually went cold. There have been a few reported sightings of him, but none of these tips have led to any breakthroughs, and Robbie remains missing. In an effort to encourage new leads, his family has offered a $10,000 reward for any information that leads to his discovery, but no substantial information has surfaced. Investigators do not believe Robbie was the victim of foul play, but they admit they have no clear idea of what might have happened to him. No solid leads or significant clues have emerged in the case. Robbie is described by his family as having blonde hair and blue eyes, standing 6 feet tall, and weighing approximately 165 pounds at the time of his disappearance. His family is particularly concerned because Robbie needs to take certain medications daily, and his lack of access to them adds to their fears for his safety. When he was last seen, Robbie was wearing sandals, shorts, and a t-shirt, typical attire for him. Anyone with information about Robbie's whereabouts or what may have happened to him is urged to contact the Honolulu Police Department at 808-529-3111. For those who wish to remain anonymous, tips can be provided to Crime Stoppers at 808-955-8300. Christina Mustafa was last seen departing from her job at the Walgreens pharmacy in Phoenix, Arizona, on May 10, 2017. She seemingly vanished from her residence, located in the vicinity of North 20th Place and East Robin Lane, during the night of May 10 or the early hours of May 11. Upon police inspection of her house the following day, her Nissan Cube was found parked in the driveway. Inside, her purse, wallet, credit cards, identification, and social security card were discovered on the bathroom floor. Her cellular phone was also located, submerged in water. Her boyfriend explained that he had inadvertently dropped it. Mustafa left behind 2 children. Her eldest, a teenage daughter, resided in Jordan with her biological father. Meanwhile, her 8-month-old daughter remained at home. Mustafa was part of a large family with 7 siblings, and she typically maintained daily contact with at least one of them. She was known as a devoted mother and diligent worker, and her sudden departure from her family and job without any prior notice raised suspicions. Remarkably, she hadn't missed a single day of work in 11 years. In June 2017, Robert John Interval Jr., Mustafa's live-in boyfriend and the father of her infant, was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in connection with her disappearance. Mustafa's family disclosed that she had expressed fear of Interval and had intentions to relocate with their baby while obtaining a restraining order against him. On the day she disappeared, Interval phoned her at work around 1 p.m., accusing her of infidelity and issuing threats to her life. Approximately half an hour later, she left her workplace. After her reported disappearance and the arrival of law enforcement at her residence, Interval informed them that Mustafa had set off for work on foot that morning due to a flat tire on her car. However, subsequent examination revealed that all the car's tires were in good condition. On that very day, Interval posted Mustafa's vehicle for sale online, along with a bed, a mattress, and his work trailer. Investigative authorities discovered a limited amount of potentially blood-stained material on the couple's bed linens. Additionally, luminol, a substance used to detect concealed blood stains, indicated the presence of blood or biological material on the house walls. Interval consistently maintains his innocence in connection with Mustafa's disappearance and refutes any claims of domestic violence, although he does admit to heated arguments regarding his suspicions of her infidelity. Following a week-long trial, he was convicted of murder in April 2019 and subsequently sentenced to the maximum prison term of 25 years. Since her disappearance, Mustafa's passport and bank account have remained untouched. Authorities strongly believe that her remains may be located somewhere within the 2,652-acre landfill in Buckeye, Arizona. Despite an extensive 3-month search of the landfill, no indications of her body were discovered. Given the circumstances, foul play is strongly suspected in Mustafa's case. On a cold winter night in New Jersey, 28-year-old Robin Trevisano, a dedicated mother and dancer, disappeared, leaving her family and investigators baffled to this day. Robin Leake was born on June 27, 1968, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Growing up in Pine Hill, New Jersey, she faced significant challenges. Her father died from cancer when she was young, and she later lost a half-sister in the move bombing in Philadelphia. Despite these hardships, however, Robin was determined to build a better future. She was athletic, excelling as a cheerleader and on the all-star baseball team. Her aspirations led her to study nursing, where she met Robert Trevisano. They married on June 19, 1988, aboard the Spirit of Philadelphia, but financial troubles strained their relationship, leading to their divorce in 1993. Now a single mother of 3, Robin moved to a duplex in Ventnor City, New Jersey. Struggling financially, she was devoted to her children, taking them on adventures and instilling rules like no snacks after 8 p.m. To support her family, she explored an unconventional job as a go-go dancer, which she initially hesitated to pursue. Working at Heartbreakers in Neptune City under the pseudonym Tony, she earned money while keeping her children unaware of her job. At Heartbreakers, Robin met a married New Jersey lawyer. Their relationship was complex. He supported her financially but didn't leave his wife. This arrangement allowed Robin to quit dancing, but she remained burdened by stress and financial pressures. However, on the weekend of her disappearance, Robin's ex-husband was scheduled to pick up their children. This left her some time to focus on her studies at Atlantic Cape Community College. On Sunday, January 19, 1997, after studying, she drove 80 miles to see her boyfriend. Their meeting turned tense, and Robin left upset, heading to Heartbreakers. Arriving around 5:30 p.m., she drank with friends but soon wanted to move to another club. Delilah's Den friends couldn't give her a ride as they were working or had been drinking. Robin, increasingly intoxicated, left the bar with an unidentified man. She never returned home, and her children alerted their grandmother, Mary, to her absence. After that, the police began their search at Heartbreakers, where Robin was last seen. Descriptions of the man she left with surfaced: a Caucasian male with light brown hair and blue eyes, weighing between 170 and 180 pounds. Despite detailed sketches, his identity remained unknown. A breakthrough came when Robin's jacket and purse, containing $500, were found in a wooded area behind Delilah's den in South Amboy. This discovery raised more questions. Had Robin made it to Delilah's den, or had someone deliberately placed her belongings there to mislead investigators? Moreover, the investigation proposed several theories. Some suspected the man she left the bar with, while others thought her boyfriend might be involved. There were even speculations about a serial killer, but the Long Island serial killer was ruled out. Years passed with no significant leads. The Monmouth County Prosecutor's Cold Case Unit re-examined the case in 2019, intending to use advanced DNA testing, but no breakthroughs emerged. However, Robin Trevisano, last seen on that fateful night at Heartbreakers in 1997, remains missing. She was a white female, 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighing 105 pounds, last seen wearing a brown coat and a leather hair barrette with a wooden pin. Despite the passage of time, her family still seeks answers and justice. The man seen with her remains unidentified, and the true nature of her fate continues to elude those who have been searching for over 2 decades. When someone with plans for the near future goes missing, it often raises serious concerns, as it suggests they did not disappear willingly. This seems to be the situation in the case of 37-year-old Kathleen Patricia Haley, who has been missing from Newport News, Virginia, since September 1, 2012. Kathleen's family has emphasized to investigators that she was in the habit of keeping regular contact with them, typically on a weekly basis. They also noted that she would never leave without informing someone of her whereabouts. At the time of her disappearance, Kathleen was working as a dancer at a nightclub called Headlights and was living alone in an apartment on the 2800 block of West Avenue. Her boyfriend had moved to Germany just a month before she vanished. On the day Kathleen went missing, she spoke with her sister and they made plans to have dinner together that evening. Kathleen also mentioned that she had some errands to run after dinner. However, Kathleen never showed up at her sister's house as planned. When her family didn't hear from her for 6 days, they reported her missing to the Newport News Police Department. They also noted that Kathleen's dog was missing, which added to their worry. When investigators arrived at Kathleen's apartment, they immediately suspected foul play. The scene inside the apartment raised many red flags. Investigators found what they believed to be biological material in several places, including on the walls, in the kitchen, and in Kathleen's bedroom. There were also traces of biological material on clothing items left in her laundry basket, which were collected as evidence. Equally concerning was the fact that some items were missing from the apartment. However, it didn't appear to be a robbery, as the missing items seemed to suggest that someone had gone to great lengths to dispose of potential evidence. Among the missing items were Kathleen's computer and bed. The mattress and box spring were later discovered near a dumpster outside her apartment building. Additionally, investigators noted that a piece of carpeting had been removed from Kathleen's bedroom. Multiple pairs of rubber gloves and several cleaning products were found in the bathroom, indicating that someone may have attempted to clean up a crime scene. Kathleen's car was eventually located within the apartment complex where she lived. Investigators found it unlocked, and the driver's seat was pushed all the way back. This was particularly suspicious because Kathleen was only 4 feet 11 inches tall, and she would not have been able to drive with the seat in that position, suggesting that someone much larger had driven the car. Shortly after Kathleen's disappearance, investigators released a sketch of a man who was seen by witnesses entering and exiting Kathleen's apartment on September 4th. The same man was also observed carrying what appeared to be rolled-up bedding toward the dumpster. Despite questioning Kathleen's co-workers at the club, none of them had seen her and were unable to provide any useful information regarding her whereabouts or who she might have been with. With no solid leads, investigators turned to Kathleen's bank account and cell phone records, but there has been no activity on either since her disappearance. The same is true for her credit cards. Kathleen's family has stated that she would never have given her car keys or apartment keys to anyone she didn't know, and that it was highly unusual for her to leave her car unlocked, even within the apartment complex. Kathleen is described as having brown hair and hazel eyes. She is approximately 4 feet 11 inches tall and weighs between 100 and 120 pounds. She is known to wear a gemstone necklace and small stud earrings. Kathleen's family is desperate for answers and urges anyone with information to come forward. If you have any information about Kathleen's case, please contact the Newport News Police Department at 757-928-4100. Alternatively, you can provide information anonymously by contacting Crime Line at 888-562-5887. Jackson Brent Garcia was last seen by his cousin the day after Christmas in 2020. Without any warning, he left the house and has not been seen or heard from since. Brent was 18 years old and living in Sumter County, South Carolina, at the time of his mysterious disappearance. He was very close to his family, especially his grandmother, with whom he lived. Brent had dreams of becoming a veterinarian and had a deep love for animals. Christmas Day 2020 was like any other for Brent and his family. They gathered at his mother's house, enjoying good food and exchanging gifts. No one noticed anything unusual about Brent that day, and they had no idea it would be the last time they saw him. After the celebration, Brent left with his grandmother but did not go home with her. Instead, he went to visit a cousin, which was unusual as he typically informed his family of his whereabouts. Brent and his cousin spent the evening playing games. At one point, Brent's brother called, and they chatted for a while. Around 5:30 p.m., Brent received a call from his grandmother, who asked if he would be coming home that night. Brent assured her he would be home soon. This was the last time she heard from him. When Brent didn't return home, his grandmother, Jean, tried to call him again but got no response. Brent's location was still known at this point, as he stayed at his cousin's house for the night, which was unusual for him not to inform his grandmother about his plans. On the evening of December 26th, Brent vanished. He and his cousin had taken the dog outside around 7 p.m. After the dog was done, Brent's cousin took the dog back inside, but Brent didn't follow. His cousin didn't actually see Brent leave but noticed he was gone when he returned to look for him. A few days later, Brent's mother reported him missing. Sniffer dogs picked up his scent at a Family Dollar store on Route 15, about an hour-and-a-half walk from his cousin's home and far from his grandmother's place. Despite a search of the area, no clues were found. For over 2 years, Brent's family has been searching for answers and raising awareness of other missing person cases in the local area. A $10,000 reward is offered for information leading to Brent. Anyone with information can contact the Sumter County Sheriff's Office at 803-436-2000.